Yeah!
Air Force? Marines? No Marines? Marines, their cousin, the Coast Guard?
I'm an Army dad.
There you go. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Scott.
You didn't mention Navy.
Well, at the beginning, for us.
Oh, you did? Are you?
Underwater mine warfare.
So there's nobody here tall enough to be in the Coast Guard?
No.
You're like 7 feet tall, right? So when your boat sinks, you can wade ashore.
Hey, that's the trickiest part of saying that. It's easy out in deep water.
Okay. This year I was going to spend quite a bit less time talking about myself and how I got involved in everything. Most of you know that story. If not, going back and I'll tell it over again. I want to spend a little bit more time on the tape and some of the other stuff that we've seen and found and we've decided to talk about that's on the tapes, including what we call cognates, or cognatic expressions. These are words that would be both the same in English or any other language as well as in the Sasquatch language. We're not only qualified to talk about English or Spanish or Russian or Persian. Okay? And we'll talk about what you have to be careful of when we talk about cognates, and then I'll play a couple on here. See if you can hear them for yourselves. That's what we're trying to do, is get the longer chord where we can hear it better, the tapes themselves on here. And then I want to go over with you a thing that I published last year, a little over a year ago, the Sasquatch phonetic alphabet, and the purpose of why I felt I needed to get that out on the street for the use of researchers. And then, for the first time, Ron and I have made a decision that we're actually going to start talking about what's been going on up in that camp. Some of the weird things that happened to him before I got involved, and with the other hunters, and with MN.B.R.T. and the whole group up there. And then in these last 3 summers, since I got involved, Ron and myself and my son, only really the third and fourth guy, me and my son, the fourth guy, outsiders that had ever been invited to go up into that pretty famous Sierra camp where these original tapes have been made. There was one, Ron took one naturalist up there for a couple days, and the only other guy that's been up there was Peter Byrne. They flew up there illegally in a helicopter and were dropped almost right at the camp in a helicopter, and for just about 4 or 5 hours. And those are the only other people, other than the original hunters that were in the camp, that have ever been invited up there. So me and my son, we feel pretty privileged to have been invited up there by Ron, and so we now feel like it's about time to start talking about the stuff that's been going on up there. The initial purpose for why I felt I needed to get up there and is what we really need in order for me to finish this paper. I'm going to have to finish this paper anyway and get it published. But what we really wanted is kind of to have a final chapter. We wanted to have some reproduction of the initial data. We wanted to get up there and our holy grail, if you will, was to get me on tape, mimicking some of these sounds, some of these linguistic sounds from the original tapes, and then get some response from Sasquatch. This would be the perfect thing. Not that he and I would ever actually know what we're saying, but at least if we got some response in that way, the Sasquatch would know that we were trying to communicate, and the attempt was being made, and he was attempting to communicate back with me. we've not obtained that Holy Grail. And we have some ideas as to why that's happened. And I will go over some of those things with you as we go through this. Okay. Yeah, it's going to work. Good.
What makes it turn it
I'll tell you a little bit about the history of the camp. It was started by just a group of old boy hunters back in the late 50s. It is so remote. We know that that's why they chose this, is their, let me try it out.
Front roadway went like this.
Yeah, I was going to, that's what's up.
Just I'm not getting anything now. I'm not getting anything now.
There we go, try that. Anyway, these hunters back in the late 50s began using this place because it was so remote that they didn't think anybody would ever find it. And indeed, it's still to this day, it's almost impossible to find. I could not find it. My son says, my 14-year-old boy says he could find it, but I'm doubtful. What it takes to get to this camp, and the reason it's important to know this is because Ron Moorhead and Alan Berry have been accused of every sort of deception. Hoaxing this thing. They've been accused of perpetrating something that was hoaxed onto them. That people that even they've gone so far as to say that Marines from the other side of the mountain had purposely made a trip over to the Sierra camp to perpetrate a hoax on these hunters. And this, I can say, having been there numerous times over the last 3 summers, this is impossible. The way you access this camp is through a series of switchbacks that is about 8 miles long, 5 to 8 miles long, and up a hill up the side of the mountain that is about that steep. Okay? Very dangerous. That's just to get to the top of the mountain. And once you get to the top of the mountain, to get to this hunting camp, there's another 6 to 8 miles with no trail. There is no trail there. Right? Now, since that time, and even this summer while we were up there, we met a few other hunters going up there it's become a more popular place to hunt. But even with the other hunters going up there to scope out a place for hunting season, we had no fear whatsoever that they would ever stumble onto this camp. It's just impossible to find. So keep that in mind as I tell you some of these stories that happened up there. Ron and I, when we first got started, we thought that it was our duty to help prove the existence of Bigfoot. That, after all, and I say it here in my Sasquatch phonetic alphabet on the first page, it says that this to us is proof that Bigfoot exists. Because no